Hey y'all, welcome back to How Do You Cook? Back to Basics. Today I'm making Thanksgiving dinner for my family. So right now we are going to make the traditional cornbread dressing. So it is one of my favorite recipes of all time. My mother showed me how to do this when I was younger, and I just kept practicing and practicing until I felt like it was perfection, just like my mother made it. So it's just a traditional dressing. I do not add all the eggs or chicken or turkey to my dressing. It's just plain cornbread dressing, and you will see how it looks when we are complete. Okay, so while you are preparing your dressing bread, you can preheat your oven to 375 degrees and go ahead and put in some oil to your pan here and let that be heating up before you put in your dressing bread. We're only making our dressing bread right now, and then I will show you how to make the actual dressing once the bread is completed. So like I said, just turn your oven on 375, let it be preheating, and then while you're while you're making your dressing bread, you can put your pan with your oil in the oven just like this. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it in the oven and let it be heating up really good before you put in your dressing bread. Okay, we'll be right back, y'all. First thing we're going to do is we're going to add some cornmeal. So for the sake of this video, like I said, I never measure, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to measure everything out for you. So if you wanted to make this recipe, you can. Okay, so here's 1 cup of cornmeal. This is self-rising cornmeal. That is 1 cup of cornmeal right there. And we almost have 2 cups. Okay, I'm gonna call that 2. And I'll probably put a little bit more in there, probably 3 cups. Because I'm making a lot of dressing, y'all. It goes really fast here. Okay, so there's 3 cups of cornmeal, just like that. And I'm going to add 1 cup of flour. No, let me see. Yes, I'm going to add, no, not 1 cup. How about we do 2/3 of a cup? There we go. 2/3 cup of flour. And you got your 3 cups of self-rising cornmeal. Now the flour is Martha White all-purpose flour. And the cornmeal I'm using is Martha White self-rising cornmeal mix. And this is the all-purpose flour that I'm using right here. Okay? All right. Now, so we have 3 cups of cornmeal, 2/3 of a cup of all-purpose flour. So now what we want to do is we want to add our eggs. I'm going to add 3 eggs to the mixture. And I'm going to add some salt and pepper. So I'm going to do 1. So it's about 2 tablespoons. And my pepper. About 2 teaspoons of that. Okay, so now what I want to do is I'm going to add my sage. I always add my sage and my celery and my onions to my cornbread, so I can cook that first, and then I'll show you how we do it. Okay, so you are going to think that this is crazy, but I love sage in my cornbread dressing. Who doesn't like sage in their cornbread dressing? Okay, so I have here almost 1/2 cup of rubbed sage. This is what I got right here. I used one whole one of these, a whole jar, and I used about 1/4 of another jar to make almost 1/2 cup. So I'm gonna pour that in there. You may think that's a lot, but let me tell you, it's good. Okay, I added our sage. And now what I'm gonna do is start adding our onions and celery. So I am going to measure out the onions and celery for you so you can see how much I use. Okay, so that's 1/2 cup right there of onions. Finely chopped onions. I'm going to use 1 cup actually. 1 cup of onions. Okay, so that makes their second 1/2 cup. So that's 1 cup of onions right there, y'all. Now we're going to do our celery. We're going to do the same thing to our celery. And I'll probably add a full cup of celery also. Okay. Just put that in there. Now, celery can be kind of overpowering to your dressing. So I'll probably add more onions in a little bit because the celery does overpower. Okay, so there's my celery. There, just a little bit more dollops. Okay. Another tablespoon of that. All right, so we have our 3 cups of cornmeal, 2/3 cup of all-purpose flour, 1 cup of chopped celery, finely chopped, 1 cup of chopped onions, almost 1/2 cup of rubbed sage, 3 eggs, 2 teaspoons of pepper, and about 1.5 tablespoons of salt. Okay, so now we're going to add our milk so we can stir it all up really good. I'm just going to add a cup at a time. Okay, here's 1 cup of milk. I know we're going to need more, so I'm going to put another cup in there. 2 cups. Okay, there's 2 cups of milk. I'm going to start stirring and see where we're at. Okay. Try to mix everything up, y'all. And I can already smell it. Oh, it's going to be so good. This is my favorite part of Thanksgiving dinner. Is that cornbread dressing. As you can see, it doesn't look anything like regular cornbread. But my mother-in-law showed me this trick to cook everything, all your items in your cornbread dressing when you're making your cornbread. That way, if you feel like you don't have enough sage or onions or whatever you have, then you can always add more once you crumble up your bread for your dressing. Okay, so I think this looks good. This is a good consistency right here. So I'm going to smell it. You're probably going to think it's weird, but I know it's a certain smell that I can smell my cornmeal. That smells good, y'all. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that for right now. Then I'm going to go over here and get my preheated pan out of the oven and show you guys what I do before I put it in the oven. Okay, be back in a minute, y'all. Okay, y'all, so our dressing pan has been heating up for about 15 minutes. That is while we were preparing our dressing bread. Okay, so we're going to take our pan out of the oven. Super hot, y'all. That grease is hot, so you have to be careful to get that out. We're going to shut that up. Now, I want to show you what I do. Now, once that grease is good and hot on the bottom, I usually take a little bit of cornmeal, just like this, and I just pour it on the bottom. It kind of helps your dressing bread to not stick to the bottom. So that's what I do there before I pour in my dressing bread. Okay. So now we're gonna pour our prepared dressing bread in our pan here, and we're gonna cook it up just like cornbread, but it's like revamped up, y'all. Sorry if I'm scraping, but I like to get all that stuff. Okay, so it doesn't look like that it filled up that pan, which is good because that's not what I wanted anyway. So once our dressing bread cools down, I'm going to show you what I do to crumble it up to actually make the most moist dressing you've ever put in your mouth. Okay, so I'm going to put this in the oven right now, y'all, because it is ready to go in. I'm just going to let that dressing bread cook. And you are going to want to cook that dressing bread until you can put a fork or a toothpick in the center of that dressing bread. And then if it comes out clean, then your bread is ready. Okay, guys, our dressing bread is done. So what you want to do is put your fork down in the center. And if it comes out clean, then you're good to go. So you're good to go, y'all. Okay, so what we're gonna do now, this is what I'm gonna do to cool down our dressing bread before we can crumble it. Okay, even though it's still really hot, I'm gonna cut it. Woo, I just burnt myself, y'all. Woo. All right, this hot, so be careful when you're cutting stuff. This is super hot. Okay, I go ahead and cut everything up and kind of get it moving along to cool down some so I can start crumbling it. So it'll probably take a good couple of hours before it'll be ready for me to start crumbling. Okay, so I'm just gonna let that sit and cool down, and throughout the hour or two that I'm waiting, then I'm just gonna keep stirring it and trying to cool it down as I can. Okay, so we'll be back, and once our cornbread is ready to be crumbled, I will come back and show you how I do that. Back in a little bit, y'all. Okay, y'all, we're getting ready to crumble up our dressing bread right here. Okay, so I want to show you what I normally get out of here. Usually, like the edges, like the dark pieces, I just throw in the trash. And I usually keep all the insides. But here, I'm going to get a bowl because sometimes I like to eat the crust separate. So I'm going to put the crust in a bowl here. So I'm going to try to get as much of the crust out as I possibly can. See, that's what you do right there. You just get all the insides of that. That way you don't have big chunks of crust in your dressing. Okay? So that's all you do right there. Okay, y'all, I have went ahead and got most of the crust out of my dressing. So now what I do before I cook it is I usually get some real butter, and I just place dabs of butter all over the top of the dressing before you cook it. Okay, now I just put a full stick of butter on there, so that's what a full stick of butter looks like, and that's all we need for right now. So right when I'm getting ready to start cooking it, I'm going to show you how much chicken broth I add. Be back in a minute, y'all. Okay, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and start adding my chicken broth. To my dressing for cooking. All right, so I have this is a 48-ounce box of chicken broth, great value. I'm just gonna open that up, and I'm gonna start pouring. Okay, and then I'm just gonna start pouring the chicken broth over my dressing bread. And see, I tasted my dressing bread while I was getting all the crust off to see if I needed any more sage or anything else, and it turned out I did not. I have plenty of stuff in there. Okay, so that was one package, one 48-ounce box of chicken broth. Now I'm going to kind of go around it and let that bread absorb that chicken broth, because it's gonna absorb it pretty quickly, and you do not want a dry dressing. I always put my dressing in the oven when it looks soupy. So this is not all the broth I'm going to use. I'm going to put more broth in there because I don't want my dressing to be dry. And you'll see after I've cooked it, you'll see what it looks like. So I opened up another 48-ounce box of chicken broth, and I'm just going to probably maybe pour a fourth of that in there. As you can see, it looks like it's swimming in chicken broth. But you'll want to go ahead and make sure that all of that bread is good and saturated, and it's had time to absorb that chicken broth. Okay? You'll see. You might think this is going to be a watery dressing, but let me tell you, it's going to be amazing. Okay. All right, we got our butter on top. Actually, I'm going to put a tad bit more of that in there. Okay, now we're good. All right, so now I'm going to put this in the oven at a 375-degree oven. It's been preheating for me, and I'll be back when it's ready to come out of the oven. Hey y'all, I wanted y'all to see what this dressing looks like mid-cooking. Okay, so remember we had all that extra chicken broth in there. You see that the dressing bread is actually absorbing all of that. So what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of stir around that butter now. The butter and the chicken broth and all that, and kind of mix it really good. Okay, that's what we're going to do right now. Okay, so right now we're good with the chicken broth. We don't need to add any more, but I will check on it again here soon and see if we need any. Okay, all right, so that's that, and we'll be back in a minute, y'all. Okay, y'all, Here's my dressing. It doesn't look like we need to add any more chicken broth, so I think we're good. So we're just gonna let this cook a little bit longer and let it get good and brown on the top. We'll be back when it's ready, y'all. Hey y'all, I want to come on here and apologize to you in advance that I totally forgot to film what the dressing looked like after it was cooked. As you can see, all you need to do is just let your dressing get good and brown on the top, and then you are good to go. So I am so sorry that I did not film that last bit for you guys. And I hope you enjoyed this episode on how do you cook back to basics. And if you have any requests, please put them down in the comment section below. I will be happy to hear from you. Thank you. Have a great day. Love you lots. Bye-bye, y'all.